I'd like to do a little overview of prepping yarn for machine knitting, whether it is a commercial style ball like this, the larger ones that you can get, whether it's some indie dyed or some natural hanks or skeins of yarn. You always want to create a cake like this before you start knitting. The reason you want to do this is because the amount of yarn that the machine uses, the speed of it, we always take it from the outside. And the cake, much like how coned yarn that you buy for the machine acts, it allows it to spin off freely without getting caught up and messing up your tensions. I'm going to be using my jumbo wool winder. This one is by Royal. Brother also did a wool winder. I think it was the L2. I prefer these jumbo ones as opposed to the smaller sort of standard hand knitters ones for two reasons. I can use any thickness of yarn, whether that is lace weight all the way up to chunky, and I have a lot of area here, so I can create quite large cakes of yarn to be used on the knitting machine. The other feature that I like about these type of winders is the tensioning unit, which a lot of the smaller style winders don't have. The tensioning unit, I can add my own amount of tension on this tensioning disc here by simply unscrewing or screwing depending on the thickness of yarn, how tight I want the cake to be packed on. The downside, I would say, with these type of winders is the amount of space due to its size and having somewhere designated either for it to sit, set up, ready for winding if you do a lot of winding off of hanks or commercial balls. But if you don't have the space to have things left set up, then find a good size box to store it up on top of a wardrobe or something, just to protect not only the tensioning unit but also the arms here. Starting with the commercial ball, you take the band out, and rather than take from the outside, which means that the ball will be flopping all over the place, I'm going to reach in and try and find the centre. Sometimes it'll work quite easily, other times when you grab it you'll have a lot of excess yarn that you'll have to pull out. Now, because this yarn has quite a lot of fibre to it, it's likely that it will kind of grab on the inside. Coming in through the tensioning unit, we come up through the front, much like the tension disc on your knitting machine. You'll come through the disc, making sure that the yarn sits underneath this pin on the top, and then into the back. We come through one of these arms, and we twist off the centre cone. Some of the cones will have slots in the top. I normally always take the cone off, sit the yarn underneath and twist the cone back on. And then start winding. Now, Obviously, if you're not going to have it clamped down to a table, you need to be careful of where you're going to grab onto, because if you grab on at the top and your finger starts to edge towards this and you're winding it on quite fast, you're going to end up getting caught in here. It's always safer to clamp it to the table, and it's one less thing that you have to worry about. You can see there the yarn bouncing up and down. That's another benefit of having this tension disc in the front, is that it will keep the yarn out of the cake and under control a little better. But sometimes it doesn't always work and you end up with a bit of a bird's nest that you have to go in and untangle. This is a lot worse because of the type of yarn that I'm using. And when you come to the end, you can twist it off. Normally I unwind this slightly, just to neaten it up, and just come back on and then push the cone off. You can leave the cone on, that gives you a better base to be able to knit off of, or you can use something that has a long rod that you can thread the yarn onto if you don't have a lot of these plastic cone centres. And that's now ready to be used on the knitting machine, freely feeding off. And I can pack this away again back into its box and on top of the wardrobe. Depending on the type of yarn that you had used to wind on, I would suggest coming in with a paintbrush and just give everything a light dusting off, because I've caked about 4 hanks and 2 balls here and I have a lot of residue. So it's always good just to give it a little clean before you put it away, and maybe just a little spray of oil every few months into the gear mechanism just to keep it happy. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video. Feel free to leave a comment, and until the next time, you've been watching Button Mouse the Wee Machine Knitter.